Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to Language Awareness Editor's Pick interview series. Language Awareness is a peer-reviewed international journal that publishes research of second language learning and teaching. And in this interview series, we feature researchers of articles picked by the journal editor, Professor Masatoshi Sato. My name is Jason Brown, editorial manager for the journal, and today we're here with Leila Gholami, whose article, Incidental Corrective Feedback Provision for Formulaic versus Non-formulaic Errors, EFL Teachers' Beliefs and Practices, has been recognized. Welcome, Leila.
Hi, thanks. Thank you for having me.
Yes, we're really pleased to have you. Thank you so much for joining us. And so, Leila, first, I'd like to share, if you don't mind, if you could share your bio info with our listeners.
Sure, of course. I'm a PhD candidate in linguistics and applied linguistics in the Department of English at Arizona State University. Well, my research interests primarily lie in the area of instructive second language acquisition in general, and in particular in the role of formulaic language in enhancing second language learners' accuracy and fluency in both spoken and written discourses.
Okay, thanks so much, Leila. Let's get started with some questions about your current research. So could you tell us a little bit about the topic of your recent study and the study's objectives?
Sure. Well, there is substantial evidence that providing corrective feedback for learners' non-target language use incidentally during communicatively oriented to their L2 development. On the other hand, teacher cognition line of research indicates that a teacher's belief system heavily influences their actual classroom practices. So in this study, I examined matches or mismatches between EFL teachers' beliefs and their actual classroom practices as far as error treatment of different linguistic features is concerned.
Okay, that's great. And so what were the specific gaps that your study addressed?
Well, there is a view that language revolves around two overarching principles, the idiom principle and the open choice principle. The open choice principle refers to the capacity of language speakers to generate an infinite number of utterances, each time from scratch by selecting vocabulary items and using grammatical rules. On the other hand, the idiom principle refers to the capacity of language speakers to communicate by drawing a large repertoire of prefabricated chunks of language, which are processed holistically. And as a result, they offer cognitive processing advantage over rule-based language. So this study is the first research initiative to investigate teachers' cognition and their corrective feedback treatment through the lenses of formulicity of language.
Well, that sounds very interesting, but at the same time, it sounds like it might be complicated. So how did you go about organizing your study methodologically?
Sure. So this study is the first to maintain a division between formulaic constructions and non-formulaic ones. Non-formulaic constructions refer to single word vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation. And formulaic constructions refer to collocations, lexical bundles, idioms, compounds as chunks of language. So first, I designed a questionnaire and conducted a simulator recall interview to elicit teachers' beliefs about addressing formulaic and non-formulaic construction through corrective feedback provision. And in order to account for their practices, I examined audio and video recordings from 24 hours of teacher-learner interactions in a communicatively oriented context, and then identified and coded error episodes and corrective feedback episodes in terms of their linguistic foci and different corrective feedback types used to address them.
Wow, sounds like you had a lot of data there. So what were the major findings from your study?
Yeah, my findings show that while learners' non-target use of formulaic constructions outnumbered that of non-formulaic ones, teachers tended to provide feedback and draw learners' attention more often to their non-formulaic errors. However, learners tended to produce uptake and successful uptake, which means that they incorporated teachers' corrective feedback more often when their formulaic errors were addressed. Regarding teachers' cognition, my findings show that while teachers unanimously believe that it's important to draw learners' attention to formulaic errors as often as, if not more, than non-formulaic errors, but their practices did not reflect their stated beliefs.
Okay, then. So if we look at it from a slightly different angle, in terms of applying your research findings to the real world setting, how do you think the findings of your study might help teachers in the classroom?
Sure. So my study suggests that teachers consider formulaic constructions as legitimate corrective feedback targets, among other options such as single word vocabulary and grammar, and raise learners' attention about formulaic nature of language as self-standing units of meaning which have figurative sense. They are holistically analyzed and they are semantically and grammatically irregular chunks of language. And given that there was a mismatch between teachers' stated beliefs and their actual practices, this study suggests that teacher trainers in teacher training programs raise language teachers' awareness of formulicity of language and provide them with tools and strategies such as corpus-informed tools in their corrective feedback treatment of idiomaticity of language.
That's great. And so I just wanted to ask you next, in terms of your experience publishing with language awareness, what comments or feedback do you have about that experience?
Well, it was a great experience. It took me a couple of months to be able to revise, but I received wonderful feedback from the editor as well as the reviewers of language awareness. And the fact that my paper has been selected as editor's pick in a top tier journal gives me a lot of hopes for my future career in applied linguistics as a graduate student.
Yes, congratulations so much, Leila. That's fantastic. And so as we notice, we look at your track record, you've had quite a few publications already. So as a PhD student, would like to know what have been the key ingredients that have made your early career success possible?
Sure. Well, a bit tricky question. My interest in research on formulaic language dates back to my MA studies. And in my MA thesis, I investigated form-focused instruction of formulaic language. And after admission to ASU as an urban institution, I pursued this line of research further and examined formulaic language in written discourse. Currently, I'm focusing on investigating formulaic competence in L2 assessment and eventually automated evaluation of formulaic competence in a large scale proficiency test. So I believe that identifying a gap in the literature and investigating that phenomenon from different perspectives could help graduate students like me to be able to publish and contribute to research in applied linguistics.
Sounds like some great advice. And again, we really appreciate you sharing that with us today. So on behalf of Professor Sato, the editorial board of the journal, and Taylor and Francis, we'd like to thank you for contributing your research to the journal and participating in the interview today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me again.
It's been a real pleasure. Thanks, Leila.